Americans are the best by far at basketball and football. They're also not far off the best in baseball. But why are they not one of the best in soccer when it comes to the men's side? Stay tuned to find out my reasons why. What's up, everybody? Jacob Twellman here with Amateur Hour Sports, where we bring you raw and unfiltered sporting content Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Today, I'm bringing you an episode on why America failed at soccer. And it's a bit of an interesting topic because the American population is so huge. There's so much funding and money into sports in the US. They're so formidable at basketball and football. They're one of the best at baseball, but they could never transcend that into the soccer world. And I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why America failed at soccer. Let's get right into it. Reason number 1. In the first ever World Cup, the US were one of the teams that were involved in that. However, there wasn't really a qualifying process. It was just any team who wanted to show up to the event really did show up because of how expensive it would have been to travel to Uruguay for the first World Cup. And US were one of those teams that opted to show up to that World Cup, where they eventually finished in 3rd place. And that still remains the best finish they have ever had at a World Cup finals. And why did it not take off from there? Why did soccer in America not progress from that stage onwards? Well, I think that the Americans developed a winning mentality as a result of the World Wars, especially World War II. After winning both World Wars, the American way became winning and only winning. And soccer was far too global at that stage in its development for the US to be the dominant force in that sport. Way too many other countries played that. But how about basketball? Maybe look at the football as well. American football, that is. The Americans were in a position to dominate those sports. So that's what they honed in on. That's what the focus was placed on. Basketball and football, becoming the best. Also in baseball as well, becoming the best at those sports that they could become the best at. Because the American way was winning. And if they couldn't win at something and they weren't the best, they did something that they were the best at. And what they were the best at was not soccer. So there wasn't a focus on developing their soccer skills and the talent in the US following the Second World War. And it wasn't until maybe the turn of the century where there was a real focus on progressing soccer in the US. Maybe in 94 as well, after they hosted the World Cup, that's when they really wanted to start pushing soccer, especially with the MLS development in 1996, but there wasn't a real focus until then on developing soccer in the US. Reason number 2, and I'm not American, and I am a Canadian soccer player, that's why I've got Big D-Row on the back here, but one of the main reasons why the US really struggled to progress in soccer is because of the way they scout. And even though I am Canadian, I have played a lot of games in US. I played in a US-based league for about 4 years in a row, where I really saw how the scouting goes down, how the talent comes into play. And you can't really do soccer the US way because the scouting has a focus more on physical attributes rather than your technical attributes. So if you're bigger, taller, you're probably going to be selected as a center back over somebody who's more of a technical center back. You know, if you're a 6'2 meathead center back, you're going to get taken over the 5'10, 5'11 center back who's better at tackling and is more technical on the ball just because your size is an advantage over that player. And I've noticed it on numerous occasions where that is the case. The bigger center backs take the priority over the smaller ones who are better players. And also, we look at other positions where speed comes into play. If a player is fast but not as technical as somebody else, they will get selected ahead of that in any sort of scouting process. And I have seen a lot of players who who had such great talent but did not make it anywhere as a result of their physical attributes. The focus on US scouting is physicality rather than actual soccer ability. Reason number 3. When the MLS began in 1996, there was an awful marketing strategy going along with the start of that league. Teams played in huge football stadiums, American football stadiums, like things like the Cotton Bowl, where there weren't enough fans to fill up those stadiums. So the atmosphere sucked. It was subpar. You couldn't really get behind your team because of the lack of fans in the stadium. The stadiums were way too big. They were not soccer-friendly stadiums. And there was a real lack of soccer culture because the Americans really changed up a lot of things to tailor towards an American game. And I'm sure everybody has seen those clips of 1996 MLS penalty shootouts where there's such an obsession with winning in the US. There can't be a tie. It's the American way, like I said, to be the winner. So how can you end a game as a tie? We can't even conceive ending the game as a tie. So the Americans used that running penalty shootout, kind of like hockey style penalty shootouts that I'm sure you've seen clips of all over social media or on YouTube before. There's such an obsession with winning. They tried to do it the American way, and that wasn't how you do it. They tried to market the MLS like it was any other sport, but you have to market soccer differently from the other sports. You can't use that strategic plan towards how you market soccer. And I've noticed in the last decade, since about 2010, that has been the change that the MLS have tried to make. Now there's a bigger focus on making soccer-friendly stadiums, more soccer-specific stadiums, smaller, generate better atmosphere, and that's helped building the culture that the U.S. has lacked throughout the course of its soccer history. Reason number 4. Once upon a time back in mostly the 70s, there was the NASL, the North American Soccer League, and that is really the first big league created in the United States. And the marketing that was bad at the start of the MLS was even worse at the time then, because that league lasted until 1985 when it folded and soccer was done in North America, specifically US and Canada. That's excluding Mexico. But that league was not done very well, and it was difficult to really generate a lot of attention to that league and the players and to generate fans. So what they did was they started signing very expensive, well-known players. Like the New York Cosmos signed Pele. People call him the best player to ever play the game. And another team signed George Best. The problem was there was no real money in that league. They couldn't afford to pay the players that they were giving these enormous sums of money to in order to come play in North America. So as a result, the league went bankrupt and they had to completely fold and shut down operations. Now the MLS has operated with a salary cap for that reason, because many leagues, not just the NASL in the past in Canada and the US, have folded because they just simply spend too much money on their players. So the salary cap is in place with the designated player function in order to find some of those players. But the salary cap is in place to keep every team in business. And that is why the MLS is thriving a lot more now than any other league in the past in North America. It was also very difficult to generate that exposure to those leagues because a lot of attention for these leagues come through endorsements, but fighting for endorsements in the 70s for soccer players against, some of the baseball stars, MLB's best, some of the NBA's best, some of the NFL's best, it was damn near impossible. Nobody really cared about the MLS athletes. It was all about these other North American specific sports that they were so good at. That's where the marketing came from, and that's why the marketing did not succeed for the NASL. Reason number 5, most of the other sports are not globalized, especially the ones that are really heavy in the US, like the NBA, like the MLB, like the NFL. They're not really globalized, so every time there's a champion there, it's called the world champion. The Super Bowl champion is the world champion. It is called the World Series. When you win an NBA title, you are world champs, even though only Canadian and American teams, sometimes not even Canadians, involved in those leagues. They still call it world champion. And the reason for that is, well, they are the best team in the world because those leagues are by far the best in the world, but those sports just aren't really globalized. So soccer, which is the most played sport in the world, far too globalized for the Americans to just focus in on and build success. It's similar to the first point, but it's so globalized that they can't do it the American way. They cannot scout differently. They cannot build youth differently. They need to mimic the successful countries. They need to mimic European style because, like Taylor Twellman said when the U.S. did not qualify for the 2018 World Cup, you cannot do soccer the American way. It is too late. They're already set standards in place, implemented by other very successful countries with a much lower population than the United States. You need to focus on a new strategy, a better strategy. And in the last year, I've seen them make those kind of strides, looking for more technical players. And there's a lot of youth players coming up like Pulisic, like Gio Reyna. Those types of players are, I think, going to make the difference in the long run for the United States. You need to focus in on the talent rather than the physical aspect, and that needs to be done at the top level as well. That also needs to be promoted through every system throughout the ages in the US. Like I was saying in my second point, the way you scout, it needs to be done efficiently all the way through. You can't just get to the final level and then decide we need to focus on technical. It needs to be done from the youth all the way up to the professional level. Make sure you comment down below if you think US soccer is heading in the right direction. Also, give me some points about why they may have failed in the past that can supplement the ones I made. But thank you for watching. If you liked the episode, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports right now. We post 4 times a week. Stay up to date with content like this by hitting that bell so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time.